Hello, guys, and welcome to another session of techph.org's online Saturday session. So it's a rainy Saturday evening, and thank you so much for everyone who's watching us tonight live. And just a quick reminder for everyone, please do share and like our video as well, so that we can reach as many people as we can. And if you're part of a group, a tech group, or any group that who would find interest in product design, you can do a watch party. So all you have to do is click on share and select watch party and select the group that that you can do a watch party with. So today joining us is Pierce Jonota, product manager and designer for at Cebu Pacific Air. So he will talk more about product design. So this is our second session on further into design. So for the month of July, it's all about design and a little bit about development. We'll have a few speakers to talk about development as well. So and for those who are first timers in watching our live video, you can use the comment section. So if you're watching on Facebook, I think we have a few people watching on YouTube as well. So if you're watching either on Facebook and YouTube, you can use the comment section to send in your questions, and Pierce will try his best to answer your questions at the end of the session or while he's doing the talk. And also, please do react to the video. Tag your friends who might be interested to learn more about product design, and share it to your personal Facebook page if you can. And that will really help us reach more people. And the video will always be available on YouTube. So it's good to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you have to do is just search for techph.org. So again, that's techph.org, not techph.org. And you'll definitely find us there. And subscribe to the channel. We have all the videos of our past events there, saved there. And we will also try to give you references specific to the talks, so that you can click on some links that will be useful in your learning, uh, in your journey to learn a new technology. So let me invite Pierce. Hi, Pierce. How are you today?
Hello. Good evening, Luis. Good evening to everyone as well. Thank you for having me again. Initially, I believe I was supposed to be scheduled in the same session with that was Rain and Harvey, right? But apparently, I got into something during that day. So now, thank you again for having me to have this talk.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's no need to rush, and you had more important things to do. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I think it's going to be very interesting for a lot of people, because the feedback that I've been getting from our previous attendees is they want to learn more about product design, especially for those who are in graphic design. So I think people are interested, or graphic designers are interested, on how they can transition their career to product design or maybe UX as well. So, uh, Pierce will tell us more about product design. And this is just the start of our series on design. So, again, July is further into design. So, we'll invite as many speakers as we can to talk about UX, about product design, and anything related to design generally. Yeah. So uh, let me let me put Pierce through, and promise, guys, one of these days, I'll definitely have my face on the screen. But for now, it's just going to be Pierce. There, looking good, Pierce. How are you
All
today?
right. Yep. All good. The rain just stopped. I was worried if it's going to affect my internet connection for tonight, but gladly it's still okay, and we can proceed with the talk.
Yeah, definitely. So, um, but for any interruption, we will definitely reschedule this. It's not something that's too formal. And
Mhm.
guys, again, you can always use the comment section to send in your questions. And thank you so much for Nita Tenyo for watching us tonight. Good evening, then po. And for everyone who knows someone who would be interested to learn more about product design, you can tag them in the comment section so that they can watch this video. And again, I would really appreciate it if you can also do a watch party with your tech groups and tech communities. We're already doing a few watch parties with some tech communities. But if you have a group, a community in school that you want to share our live video to, then definitely do that. We would appreciate it, totally appreciate it. So, and hello to Macwell Morris. Macwell Morris is watching us right now. And yeah, so yeah, Pierce, I think without further ado, the stream is yours.
All right. Thanks, Luis. All right. To everyone again, good evening. Uh, Before I even introduce myself, so let's first say hello to everyone. Hello, how are you all? And if you replied with an "It's me," press A, and then if you replied with an "Is it me you're looking for?" after hello, then maybe you're a B. And then there's also C, there, the angel from my nightmare. If ever you just know the song, so just vote now on your phones. But so far, who am I? So my name is Honota Pierce. I usually just use my surname first when I call myself. But of course, my first name would be Pierce, and my surname is Honota. So you can just simply call me Pierce. And what I usually do in terms of my professional career, I work on designs, mainly on that's the problem solving aspect of it. And then I also do a little bit of management without being actually or stringently being called the manager. I mean, being a product manager it's really not as close as the typical or the traditional way of using the term manager. But mainly when I delve into the term management, it's usually focusing on the topic of delivery. So delivering things from one spot and making sure it gets through here. And well, it's called management. So it's about managing things. But as M 3.0 says, it's really more of managing the environment that influences all the elements there, like the people and whatever deliverables and tasks you have to do. And I still have my computer studies background with me. So I graduated with a computer studies degree. So I still have that techie stuff in me, but nothing that I do on hands well, rather hands on, rather on hands in the present day. So usually, you can find me around the outdoors or the mountains. But sadly, COVID affected the uh, our ability to travel. So that's something that I don't really get to do recently. And if not, usually I join over with communities and other events so that I could share my knowledge with different things, including development in Scrum, uh, product design, UX design, and similar topics. So that on the right part was a weird photo that I got when I was invited over in Mindanao. And I mean, how could they at least get a photo of me with that face and they rather focused on the on the hosts. Anyways, so let's go on with product design. But before we go on with the actual word or topic, product design, let's go first in breaking it down and go with design first. So if we could hear from the audience, could we at least see what design means for you? I'll try checking over the live comments. So, what's design, or what first comes to mind when you hear the word design? So, but usually, okay, if I could just skip over that. Usually, most people, even in the workshops that I facilitate over with events and trainings, usually people think of design as the aesthetic aspect or the cosmetic look. I'm seeing in our live comments, Javi says the rendering of intent. Another one says design is love. Wow. But usually when we say design, it could mean various things, and depending on the industry or in the background you are in, design could mean several things as well as on the context you become in or a part of in. So in the context of product design, it's mostly about problem solving and using what you've observed and what you know, and then from there, use that to tackle a problem or maximize an opportunity and then create a solution out of that. So it's not just the cliche that it's just the aesthetics or how it looks, it's more of how it works. And then we have the other word in the word product design, which is product. Really kind of like an arbitrary, not really an arbitrary, but it's kind of a difficult term to describe. But for the audience, could we hear what product means for you all? So like, what's a product, or what what is it, or is it even an it? So for my case, how I understand what a product is, it's something that usually a group or an organization offers that is concrete. I see someone in the live comments say that it's something that you can use. Thank you to the participant who says this is interesting topic. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So yeah, so it's something that we can use, something we can utilize that usually solves something or does something for us. Now then we jump over with product design. So if we just match over the two words, so design is problem solving and products are things that we use, that we usually do, or at least use so that we can achieve something. So product design would be necessarily just the aspect of design when it comes to products. So problem solving that produces products as its solution. But if we go over with something that's more definitive, or we could say something more um, clear, I'll quote on Nick Babik here with product design is the process of identifying a market opportunity, clearly defining the problem, developing a proper solution for that problem, and validating the solution with real users. So notice that it involves that market opportunity apart from just defining the problem. Usually, when we say design, it's usually solving a problem, but sometimes the problem is something that's already known and is still trying to be solved. When we design things, we also have to understand that there are things that it's not really a problem, but we can make something out of it, or at least maximize that something so that you could gain at least more benefits from it. So that's the market opportunity from there. And then we also have proper solution. Again, this is the ideal path, but we'll discuss on later on why it will be the proper solution. And for those who were able to attend the previous talk with Rain on UX fundamentals, so validating the solution with real users, it's something that's important when it comes to human-centered design. So really understanding that, oh, this is a real case that we're trying to design for. So we create products, or rather, we design products that real people will use. So it's really tricky, and sometimes people would just say it sounds just like UX design to me, but actually we could go further on with that topic later. So for the rest of the talk, I'll just give you a quick overview of what we'll be discussing. So for tonight, I've subdivided it into three parts. So that's the value and role. I named the second part kickstarting and doing, but essentially it's more of like what do you do in product design. And then we also have moving forward, in which all these three topics under each of the three main sections that we'll discuss. We'll go over through it as we go on with the talk. So we start with value and role. So earlier we defined what a product is from one of the participants, she said that a product is something that you can use. And the tendency when we say product, it's usually concrete. But when it comes to concrete, is it really something that's physical? Is it something that our senses could see? It really varies on how we define what a product is. But to simplify this, or at least for the sake of what we're discussing tonight, so if you look to the left, so it's one of the typical products that we discuss when we tackle product design. So it's mobile apps. So digital products, digital solutions. So it could be an app, it could be a website, those things. So it's something that you can use and it helps us achieve something, or apart from achieving something for the customer side, it would also benefit the business side on them earning, of course, from what they are selling to our customers. The second one, funnily, uh, usually it's when we talk about items that are really concrete. Sometimes it's forgotten that actual products are also something that over or rather comes over when it comes to product design. So building actual products like maybe this tumbler I have, that Dyson hair blower that you can see in the image. So these also go on through product design as well. So you have, apart from just building an interface that we usually discuss in product design, you also build an actual thing. So the prototype in this case is rather more concrete, something that you can hold, touch, see, versus what apps or websites usually exhibit. And lastly, on the third part, so I showed there uh, they call this a chat box with the name Charlie there. So Charlie is the chatbot of Cebu Pacific. So these are also products in essence. So components or portions of a product can be a product in itself. So it usually just depends on how it gets to be marketed or categorized by the organizations themselves. So usually that's how we usually see products when we talk about product design. And apart from just the product, we usually also forget the service, although there's a different topic or study which is called service design. It's something that we also need to at least be wary, or something that we also have to consider when we build products, since it's part of the whole flow of being a customer or being someone who interacts with a specific organization or a company. So if you could see here, McDonald's Next Gen, they may have the product which is the kiosk, where you can order directly instead of waiting in a queue and saying your order to a cashier or someone who would serve you. You could easily just go to the kiosk, but the service there would be getting your food as well as being able to eat and being served maybe by, if there's a pending order, by a waiter or by those other staff in the fast food establishment. So we've tackled what products are in terms of product design, and then from there, usually a product, as mentioned, is something that we use and lets us achieve something. So for this app that you see, if we could interact with the audience, what do you think is the goal of this app? So for example, if I would go about it, for me, when I use this app, it lets me go from one point to another point in a quicker manner. Others would have different goals. Okay, so we could check over your answers later. We also have for concrete products, what do you think is the goal of this product? Other people would have different goals for it. So, for example, they would want to look more sophisticated by having a Dyson hair blower. That's their goal. Others would be more on the utility that the blower would have. So, just being able to blow dry their hair. So there are different goals set from there. That's the customer's end. For the business, of course, they have goals themselves that they need to maybe influence or let people use their products more. They help them be more sustainable or have better choices, have better quality products than the other offers out there. And this also goes for one of the components that we discussed earlier. So, what does a chatbot help you? What is the chatbot's goal? What is the customer or rather, we could say the visitor chatting the chatbot? What would be their goals? So, different people, different sides of the coin or sides of the product in this case. We all have different goals for that. But mainly for product design, I could simplify it into three main goals that usually go on into something more specific once we go in each. So we have the customer goals. So what are we enabling or letting customers achieve, or what problem are we solving for them? We have the business goals, which is how could we make our product sustain our business further. So apart from just really earning, we also have how do we make it sustainable, how do we make it impact or at least give the business a better image, all those different things. And then we have delivery goals. This is more common when it comes to digital product design, but delivery goals would usually be how timely do we release the product? Do we release this, let's say, on a season? Do we release this maybe at a latter day because something is happening right now that it might look unethical? Those things. So the timing and the ability as well, if as much as the product can be something that really solves customers problems and would really benefit the business in, let's say, earning it or sustaining the business, if they can't actually release it or at least support them in being able to use that product, well then they might need to have a look at their technical or delivery goals. As Eric Erickson also says, so one of the goals of a product or what product design helps us to be able to do is on a product designer standpoint, a product designer will design the solution up until the problem changes. So usually the problem can change abruptly, but it would then be still the product designers apart from just the intuition, of course, they would have to validate it by using, let's say, research or data. But essentially, if it doesn't solve the problem anymore, or if the problem isn't present at that point, then maybe it's time to change the goal of the product. And the product design of something, of the product, won't actually solve your problems, as said by Eric Erickson. But if I would create a quote by myself, product design will eventually solve the target's problems. So it could be the customer, it could be the business, it could be the ones creating that product in a way that is valuable to you. So again, we can't just at least say we're going to release a product that would really help the customers or people out there, but would end up not being as sustainable to the business. It wouldn't be something that could serve or at least help people uh, use that product further if they can't sustain the product and let it keep on going. To which by then, so here we go. There are different roles in product design, and it could go as much as, well, it could go a lot if you actually see in some articles, actually someone in the local community went with an article that product design or product designers actually have 13 hats that they switch upon to. But simply put, I just maybe refined it into just 6 points or six roles. So one would be the UX designer hat. So making sure that it's something that solves the problems of our users or the target audience, and making sure that it's as usable as possible. Business strategy, of course, would be aligning it with the business, and if it aligns with, let's say, the goals of the business, is it strategic enough that it will help the business grow further? Those things. Research, not everyone though has the luxury of being, or rather having a role of a researcher or having a team for research, but it's actually one of the most essential roles that we usually need for the product design team or in being a product designer. So research usually helps uncover or discover things. It's uh, it's a place where we can also validate things if it's really something that's true. It could go quantitative if it's something that affects a certain demographic, if it affects a lot of people. And we could also go qualitative if it's something that really confirms assumptions or things that we may not really identify by just relying on quantitative data. To which, when we were just talking about data, researchers feed these observations and data into the data and analytics team, to which they will be the ones who will help the team, or if the product designer would have a data and analytics hat, that would be the part where you can see, okay, what would be the next steps, what would be, or what is the behavior currently of those who are using the product, or maybe if you don't even have the product yet, how are people behaving when it comes to using possibly similar products or similar activities that could influence them to using the product. Marketing and creative, so if you have a product but people don't know it, so how would they be able to use it? Marketing and creatives usually help solve that problem, which makes them problem solvers as well. And as mentioned earlier on the execution or technical goals, delivery goals, so we have the execution and delivery team. So for digital product design teams, this would usually comprise of the developers. And then for other product teams, maybe for those who are creating concrete products, that's when we have the production line or those who prototype with actual concrete products. If you have any questions, don't forget that you can leave over questions in the comment section. Thank you. So where do you sit now then? With the roles that we discussed earlier, it's not something that you all have to take in if you're a product designer. And at the same time, if you're more into managing different teams and helping a team then of excuse me, a product design team, then you can either one, collate and coordinate their feedback or their takes on creating the product, so all these six. And then from there, as a product designer or a product manager, you can then help streamline it and set a direction so that things wouldn't be as messy as it would be. So similar to if you listened also to the UX fundamentals discussion uh, by Rain. So usually you diverge, right? And then you converge. So that's where the converging happens so that you can have a clear direction or on where you're going. Hat switching then would be, so if you have in your team missing roles on what usually product designers do, or at least help in creating the product or crafting the product, you can hat switch if you can. Again, that's only if you can. And admittedly, of course, not every team would have the luxury of having all these teams. So you can do hat switching if the capability is present. And specialized as mentioned, so you could have specific teams, or you can be a product designer yourself but specializing in one of those aspects, so that you can at least clear up on where it's going in that particular portion of the product. So if, say, you're an expert in UX design and you're the current product designer for the team, then, well, maybe you can be the one driving the UX design while the other aspects of the product would be handled by possibly other people as well. Another thing for products, when we, of course, work on product design, so you have to also consider the industry that you are in. So, as much as you are the product designer and you may be doing your user research, certain people in maybe in the operations area, or those who are frontliners in that specific industry, they know a lot in how the product is being used. So being able to understand the industry you are in would also help you in crafting the product that you are in, since certain industries would have maybe niches or categories of people that use that. So that can help influence you with, oh, okay, so this is the norm in this industry. Is this something that I can also learn? Or maybe if you're coming from a different industry, a different trade practice from there can be jumped over into that new industry. So let's say, personally, I came from a very digital uh, tech company before, for a publishing company. And now that I'm in an airline, so I'm learning a lot with what airline or how airlines work, and that it's really not that focused on just the digital, but you also have to consider, oh wait, how does it work on the ramps, how does it work on the airports, how does it work in the check-in counters, those little things that you would usually think, oh, why not just create an automated system for that? Sometimes you have to see for yourself as well on how things work, and then maybe from there you can innovate or create a product for that specific problem. So we've seen over the value and mostly what the roles are when it comes to product design. So what then can we do when we tackle about product design? So I'll try to be as high level as we go into this discussion, but usually product design activities can vary with where you are or what the product is in when it comes to its uh, timeline. So you can be with your group or with your team, and then you still don't have a product to start with. So maybe in here you could see that, okay, you're just starting in your product. You can be starting from scratch, or you can get the ideas from someone else. If that, let's say, if a person joins your team and then, okay, here's my idea, and then maybe you could validate and check, okay, maybe this is the product that you want to build over. We also have the state of that it's ongoing, but it's still unreleased. So the activities usually in that part is also different. And then product design on an established product. So it's something that already exists. So it's released already. Jumping in as a product designer or someone who would tackle product design, it's another challenge as well, since you can't just change the rules in a snap, or you have to also know how was it made and what were the decisions that ended up that, okay, so why was the bottle created this way? So let's start over first with starting from scratch, or starting when it comes to product design. When we're starting, of course, as mentioned earlier as well, we have goals. And to at least start with the objectives in identifying objectives for the product that you're trying to, well, create, we I placed over some guide questions that usually ask or help people that, oh, okay, in this stage, these are the things that we have to consider. So one, also mentioned earlier with the definition of product design, what problem are we solving, or what problem are we solving for? Number two, who has this problem? So first you have the target that you want to, let's say, solve for, or it could also be the opportunity that you want to capitalize or maximize on. Next would then be the who has this problem. So who are the people who will be using? Sometimes coming in from the different events, like if you're familiar with hackathons or the idea challenges events, what I usually noticed when I was visiting or when I was invited to coach over for those events, they already have the product set in their mind. And then when you ask them who will be the one or who will be the people using this, they would usually say everyone. But the problem with everyone using it, it's too broad. And how would you solve everyone's problem? Usually you could just start at certain points and then you could build it from there. So usually try to target certain people who have or who will have or who already has the said problem, and then take it from there. And once you now have these ideas, or rather objectives, even if they're just abstract for now, what does success look like? So at least that puts you in a path that, oh, okay, this is where I want to go and this is what I want to solve. So being able to solve that problem, you want to see where you're going, but we'll get to that later as well on what if we already achieved success. Melissa Perry here shared over that when you're starting over with a product, you usually think of three main things. So we have the current state, which is also similar to what I shared over with the timeline. So the current state, where are we now? It's critical to identify the current state, because it's not that because you already have established a product, it's already done. Usually, new problems arise from new solutions, and it's best to always check where are we now. The next one would be the challenge. So once we're starting a product, we can't really go to the ideal state already, or at least create or craft the product and then we're already at the end state. It will take too much time, and possibly the problem might not be there anymore if someone maybe already got ahead of you. So the challenge is the first big goal that you want to achieve to reach the vision, which is where the product or where the team creating that product wants to go. So the challenge here, the one in the middle, helps you limit things. For some people, usually they call this the MVP, or the most was that was that the most, no, not most valuable product. That's the oh no, I forgot I forgot the meaning of minimum viable product. There you go. But others have been having different terms for it. So at least that first stepping stone, possibly the problem may have already varied, so that at least you could still adapt to the change after your first goal, but still retaining to that vision, or as others would call it, their North Star. I wouldn't go deep into this part, but it was also discussed in the UX fundamentals by Rain in the previous session. For when you're starting with a product, usually you find these things: product research and market research. So these are two different things. Personally, I don't have a vast knowledge or vast experience when it comes to market research, so I can't really vouch for knowing that. But I do believe that market research really is helpful when identifying who to target with, even if you already have ideas on where to target that product for. Not really totally research, but after your research, usually that's when you end up having your value proposition. So your value proposition usually is kind of like that. What's your catch line, or what's your tagline that will help you solve the said problem? So it's the easiest way to, let's say, if you're working in a startup, that's the value proposition then would be something that you could pitch so that people would understand what your product will be doing, or at least what it will be solving for. And apart from that, what benefits will it have should you already have the product in place, and will it affect the environment? Say for example, when the transport apps suddenly arrived in the country, that changed the way on how the environments are when it comes to commuting. It could have been good for others as they found more ways to easily have cabs, but for others as well, for the drivers' cases, they now have another means to have their own business as well. And we also can start over with design thinking. So the five-stage process: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, that usually goes around in loops. So it's something that you could also hold maybe in workshops or in a complete set of flow once you're working on the product that you're going through. So for more details on this, I believe Luis has an upcoming workshop on this. So maybe you can join that so that you could understand design thinking better. So that's the most in terms of high level when it comes to starting from scratch when it comes to products. Now let's go on with what if the product is already ongoing, it's already being developed and still not yet released though. So it's still hidden for our customers depending on the product that you're building for, but you just came into the team. So once you get into the product team, usually how would you be able to understand what or how could you benefit in improving the product? So once the product is already ongoing, you could check how are we doing so far. At least you could get like a current state or the status of okay, what's happening with the product now. It's similar to the current state that was discussed when we were still in the starting portion. So you identify what's the state of the environment always, because that will keep you grounded and know that okay, this is the next step to do. Because if you try to do something and then apparently it's something that's already done, it could be a waste of time and not value adding when you're creating or crafting for the product. What is the scope of our first goal in release? It's one of the hardest parts when it comes to product design. Sometimes people would say though that this is more of product management, but it does depend though on others would say that okay, the product manager could also be the product designer and vice versa. So the team would still be the whole team would be responsible still for the first goal, as that will entail them okay, how much effort do we put here, and will it make sense if we release it at this particular time? And say if they found out that oh okay, they can't reach the said time to release with their said goal, then maybe it's time for them to at least reassess: do we make the scope smaller, do we release at a later date just so it still has that same feature set that you may have planned, etc. And what are the challenges now and foreseen that can affect usually the first goal or the release? While the product is still ongoing, I'm quoting too much from the UX fundamentals. So product design, UX design really has a lot of interconnected lines when it comes to activities. So as mentioned also by Rain in the UX fundamentals session, so design sprints usually are some activities that you can do usually once you already have a product in mind and you're trying to validate something, so that at least it tries to address a challenge. It could be the whole product in itself. It could be a portion of the or rather a portion of the product, or could be a new feature that they're trying to assess. The catch though with design sprints is one, it has a tendency to be cool sounding. So people would try to hold and hold and hold design sprints, even if, say, they probably might not be ending up with enough value on when they're conducting design sprints. But as much as design sprints are still valuable if you see or at least hold it properly, it's still best to identify if can your team actually conduct a design sprint. So I'll share over a resource if you want to know more about design sprints for those who might not be familiar with design sprints. And usually, as mentioned earlier, so usually you just let it flow. While the project or the product is ongoing, well, it could be the project for the product, you could just see and check how is everyone working, and then you try to embed into that. Usually, if what I notice is if a designer tries to suddenly change everything without prior, let's say, um, knowledge of why that was the decision of the teams before, then it could be a big friction for those who are already working on the product and see it as clear already. But it's still a good thing to discuss if it's something that's something that they need to address for the product. So, but then again, let it flow so that the product is still ongoing and moving. This is almost outside product design already, but once you're in the delivery aspect, so making sure that the product could still go on into that I'd release state. This is more commonly seen in when it comes to digital product design teams. So we have this framework or a methodology called Scrum, which is part of Agile. From here, it tries to be as iterative as possible. It actually um, also helps at least support the design thinking flow. So apart from just creating the product from all the planning and then all the deliveries at the end, you might not be able to adapt to the sudden changes that are happening, let's say, with how you will plan for the product, or what if, let's say, there are problems in the middle of how you're doing things, or something broke, maybe, let's say, you're off let's say COVID. So if the people weren't prepared for, at least, oh no, how do we now work with this situation? So if for Scrum, in that sense, they usually chunk it into typically 2 weeks, and then from there they can reassess, okay, how are we doing, but still retaining that vision as mentioned earlier from the three things that you usually should have when starting a product. High level, that's the most I could share over with ongoing. Let's go with what do you usually do now when the product is already established, and when established, it's usually already released. If you notice, the green bar is still ongoing because the product could usually still on go and still have new changes as you go along. Once the product is established, it's still the same question of how are we doing so far? What are our next goals? So you can't just stop that, okay, you release the product, tada, problem solved. So new problems arise. And of course, how could you keep at least new problems that the customers or the people who are using the product from continuing on using the product? If they say that, okay, I now have a problem on this, you still need to address those things so that the product still continues on, and so the business then would also be as sustainable by then. How are we getting feedback? So there are different ways to do this. There could be certain people who could act as researchers. For other cases, they can have analytics installed in their digital products so that they can constantly have that behavior tracking. But again, that's usually still something that you have to consider that, okay, should we track all these or only the important parts? So that from there you can identify also what would be your next goals if these are the feedback that you're getting from the people who are using your product. Once you're already established or you have your product already released, when you jump into the team, usually it's kind of jarring to see that, okay, these are all the things I have to study, these are all the things that I have to review. But it's again similar to when the product is already ongoing. You have to understand first how was it made and how was it decided on that it will go in this way. So if the product has a roadmap, which I hope the team would have, it's best to review the roadmap and see that, okay, maybe these are the next goals then for the product. Artifacts of information architecture helps understand how it works in a sense that how are things categorized and labeled. So usually when you craft a product, okay, maybe it could have different parts. On a website, it could have different pages or different features. For certain components, what do you call it? Do you call it login? Do you call it sign in? Do you call it some other thing? Artifacts for information architecture usually has that recorded, but then again, it's more of in an ideal state. Data and feedback here. So again, as mentioned, you could track it usually for digital products with Google Analytics, but still best if you get feedback from actual consumers or users of the product. So you could get it from reviews, you could get it from hearsay, you could get it from, well, interviews and surveys as well. And of course, best to also review the product. So what better way to, apart from just reading all those documents, you could test the app or the product yourself and see that, okay, maybe these are the things then that we can identify if are the people really using these portions of the product, or well, is this something that we need to change if people aren't even using it at all. Collaborate further with all the different roles mentioned over, and you can take it from there. If something around the roadmap doesn't really sound proper, or in the current case, maybe, so for example, COVID happened, the previous goals of organizations had to have a sudden turn, and their goals have to change from then. So what initially could be achieving this much number of sales could be not the case anymore, and maybe they could focus more on safety and better handling of the product or distribution of the said product. So much for the uh, identifying what the product will have, what product design is, and what are the activities to say that, okay, you're actually doing product design activities. um, what then happens once you already have your product set? So you can have your product as shining, shimmering, splendid once you release it. So usually they would have all these grand events, and then here we present our new phone or our new app. But it's still best to check over, like, what are the results of the product that you released. People could be shelling out so much. They can be the, what do you call this, the early adopters, and then they're really invested into the product that you have. Others would have critical um, comments and feedback from the product that you have. Others might have, if you can see the pink guy here, Patrick, on the lower right portion, they may have found ways to exploit the product, which is scary. And others might end up not being able to actually use your product at all, because it could be a usability problem. It could be a different problem overall. Maybe it's something that's not really for them or doesn't really help solve their problem using your product. Continuity usually is something that we need to well, consider, uh, with the methodologies or frameworks mentioned earlier. You have design thinking, you have design sprints, uh, validating and testing, the human-centered design for coming from UX fundamentals. Uh, just having the idea and learning from things by validating and getting it from feedback, you gain new ideas, and from there continue on with building and relaunching. So it becomes like an ending, unending cycle. Well, though, up until you have to possibly close the product, or what do you call the term? Well, yeah, close the product. So being able to continue means you have to empathize and listen. So there can be people who would say that, oh, they don't understand the product, so maybe that's why they don't find it useful. Or maybe they would say na, oh, hindi, this is how you do it instead of how you were thinking to do it. So, but still, it would be better to listen to them so that you could at least address possibly what their problems can be. Eventually, it could lead you to better outcomes or results on how you're having your product. Could be for better marketing, better behavior on how people are using it, better sales could be. Collaborate further internally, because it's not just the customers that you have to be close with. It also has to be the team that you are in with. And just continue trusting the process. But if something happens in the middle, or if something doesn't really work for you, then maybe it's time to change something so that you could still adapt and continue on with what you're doing for the product. I'll take a quick drinking break. If you have any further questions, just let us know in the comments. All right. Proceeding over, so how do we learn more then when it comes to understanding designing for products? So actually, I was checking over with the different sessions of techph.org, and apparently Luis here is actually promoting over one of their events, so you could check it out over there as mentioned earlier. So introduction to design thinking, maybe it's a place you could understand further how design thinking works and how you could influence other people to understand what it means. Could help you a lot when it comes to product design. For those who are very self-paced or really wanting concrete things that they want so that they could learn, I know these books have been mentioned all over again, but in the brief, I was told that almost anyone, even those trying to switch careers to product design or UX design, are watching over. So it's really best to go with uh, so-called Bible of design. So there's the Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. But for a more holistic view or an overall view when it comes to working in teams, you have Julie Cho's uh, The Making of a Manager. So it's not really heavy on the product design, but at least it helps you work on with how is it like to build yourself better in being the so-called manager, as Julie says, or being able to work with different departments and teams if you're in a bigger establishment or organization when working with product design. It's been mentioned several times in the talk. So we have Jake Knapp's sprint book. So for those eyeing on uh, agile like environments, or those who are focusing on lean and scrum when it comes to working with designs, usually it's more fast paced than, let's say, being able to do heavy research and then boom, you have your feedback and results here. This is one way you could read over so that you could time it with how digital product teams do it nowadays. For other articles that are constantly ongoing as we go along with the days, best to check Medium and Smashing Magazine for the articles that they have, varying from different things like marketing, product, those things under product design. So, marketing, content, technical. So, they also have web aspects like HTML, CSS if you're working on web, UX design as well, how to work on with data, etc. when it comes to working with products. Uh, for those then people who are more into, I need to tap people so that they can learn, or at least I want to learn from them. Uh, Feel free to check out UXPH and the Philippine Web Designers Organization. For a specific event, then this there's an event we call the World IA Day, which is an annual event. So it's more about understanding information architecture in that case. So do check out their pages so that you could check out their events and join over their communities as well, so that you could tap people, so that you could learn more about, let's say, if you're searching for someone more into the marketing side when it comes to building products, then maybe you could find someone there in the community in UXPH or in the Philippine Web Designers Organization. Lastly, as much as we've been building several products in the modern day, there are so many apps already, and there's more to this world than just design and products. There's a lot happening with how things are going on, and it's been influencing and affecting how we also live our lives. These products changed our lifestyles, they changed how people work on with things, and also how they also create their products. But going on with the recurring theme lately, that there are a lot of things to consider when it comes to building products. How do we go on when certain products that you actually build, as mentioned earlier with the with the Patrick meme that I placed, products can be turned into something different that could be something that you're not really aware that it's already happening or going there. Being also particular with the content that you have in your products. Let's say if you're an e-commerce website, and that's your platform for selling your products, you have to also consider that the ethics underlying into the products that you sell. So as shown also here in the news article for that. And we also have to be more accessible when it comes to things. So even the simple uh, text field validation could go a long way when it comes to acceptance and being open to different cultures. There was this experience going around different products, digital products, in that case, that they're not accepting, let's say, two-letter names, but apparently two-letter names are present in the world, and that disables them from using your product, wherein products are usually meant to be able to utilize and help you do something or achieve something. And with also the recent COVID, where we're still here, we then now have to consider also that, well, we can tailor our products, but is that something that could really help in addressing that specific problem that everyone is already facing? Our products won't save the world as much as it solves problems of people in their daily lives, or maybe in some of just the activities that they do. But what can are our choices? And from there, as budding product designers or already product designers, even not being a product designer per se, but someone that helps build the product, well, then essentially you're already a product designer by then. It's time maybe that we have to be more wise, or be wiser when it comes to the products that we craft, and at least be more careful as well with how is it affecting the world right now, and is it really doing any better as much as it solves certain problems that we may be eyeing. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thank you so much, Pierce. I was trying to internalize those last words. They sobrang inspiring. And
Thank you.
let me just uh let me just take a look if we have a few
Mhm.
questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think for those who are watching us or who will be watching us in the future, you can always use the comment section. Tapos, I'll just make ulit si Pierre to give a reply to that. So the goal of this session as well is to try to document the talk of our speakers and try to
Mhm.
immortalize it in a way because this content can be very timeless and we will constantly engage with you by replying to your comments sa sa video if it's in Facebook, if it's on YouTube, it doesn't really matter. I'll try to be very vigilant kung may bagong comment. So feel free if you're watching us right now on a different day, feel free to leave your questions sa comment section and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Kukulitin ko si Pierce for an answer. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. What's amazing about the tech community in the Philippines is that they're very supportive. As mentioned by Pierce earlier, join the tech communities if you're learning product design, if you're learning UX, if you're learning design in general. UXPH is a good community to join, and there are other communities out there as well. So don't limit yourself to one, and don't limit yourself on what you see on YouTube because we have a very supportive community here in the Philippines, and it's I think it's very different. It gives you more satisfaction, more value if you're hearing it from someone that you can definitely relate to, someone who's physically located here in the Philippines. Not being too specific, but um, I personally think that some content can be more customized based on our
Mhm.
situation. Yeah. So thank you so
Mm.
much for those wise words. Um, so I didn't expect that, but it was very inspiring.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, just to also mention, Candy Song, thanks for this, Pierce. I learned a lot
Hello,
from this.
Candice.
Do you know Candice?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And Aldrich as well. So cheer
Oh
lang
my.
from. So Aldrich is
Hello.
one of the co-founders of UXPH. So thank you, Aldrich, for watching us tonight. And again, guys, we'll try our best to give you the best content that we can on technology on tech. So please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also we will be announcing the schedule for our online Saturday session next week. That will be on design, as mentioned by Pierce earlier. So please keep checking our Facebook page and join the event as well. Share, do a watch party, whatever you can do to help us reach as many people as we can. So yeah. So thank you so much, Pierce, for the time. I really
Thank you.
appreciate all the
We
effort that you put into this presentation. Yep.
we do have one question, I think. It's
Oh.
from Jokes.
Oh. Okay.
Uh,
So sorry about that. All right. It's okay.
yeah. Of the six roles, which would you say is the most important to consider? If, for example, you're creating a small startup, business, product, service. Um, Earlier, I believe I mentioned over the different industries. So if you know your product, you would usually then understand what usually goes on into that industry. So, say if it's a startup focusing on food, then maybe you have to consider research on that, and uh, the execution and the delivery, because it would be really hard to market food when you don't have the actual food product as is yet. But for other cases, like say if it's for digital product design, let's say for an app, it could also go that way, that you could then focus maybe on UX design, because it's really focused on its usability and the other aspects of UX design, plus the technical side of that part as well, since they would know how to build that. So it really goes with how you would try to start the product first. If those also are the roles that you already have by your side, let's say your friends can do this, this, and this, then maybe you could start from there instead of forcing to say that, okay, these are the things you really need to create that startup or product or service that you want to do. Hopefully that answers your question, jokes.
Yeah, I think it would. And jokes, if you have jokes is watching us on YouTube, so jokes, if you would have additional questions, please just leave it in the comments, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. All right.
Mhm.
So guys, thank you so much for again tuning in, and I couldn't be more thankful to you, Piers, for spending this time despite your busy schedule. Yeah.
Thank
Um,
you for having me as well.
yeah, maybe next time magpaparaffle tayo mga flight tickets or whatever.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, so thank you so much, viewers. And guys,
All right.
again, please comment your recommendation for our next topic, but we will still be doing design for this July. And if you know anyone who'd be more than happy to also share during our sessions, then you can tag them here. I'll definitely get in touch. And thank you so much, viewers, for the time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, and see you again in our next Saturday session. Okay,
Bye.
bye. Thank you so much, viewers.